Greetings, my GPAC TV 23 viewers, and welcome to Living Your Best Life. This segment is designed with you in mind, with specific topics talking about health and wellness. Now, I'm your host, Shirley Gibson, and if you've watched my other segments, we've talked about health topics and community health resources. We will continue to talk about these topics that I feel is beneficial to help you live your best life. But of course, we have to do our part. We may need to make necessary or needed changes for a new lifestyle. Alrighty, so living your best life starts with you, taking care of your temple. Are you doing that? I certainly hope so. If not, just sit back, relax, and enjoy our discussion and see how you might benefit from some of this information that we're going to be sharing with you. Hopefully you'll be able to use it for your good and God's glory. Today, we will be talking about mental health, which here lately seems to be a hot topic. I have with me someone who is well knowledgeable, Mr. Glenn Simpson, who is an expert in the field. So, Glenn, tell us a little bit about yourself and give us a little bit of background, please.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me.
Certainly.
Thank you for taking on a topic that oftentimes people don't want to talk about or educate about. So kudos to you for that.
Thank
and
you.
just overall for your trying to help us live our best life. So
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Certainly.
I'm Glenn Simpson. I'm a trained therapist in the behavioral health field, but for the last quite a few years, been working with what we call behavioral health delivery systems.
All right.
So how to help people get the care that they need. And I have been with ECU Health for over 17 years.
Oh, awesome.
And I
Okay.
help lead the behavioral health service line. And most of your viewers are probably familiar somewhat with ECU Health.
Yes.
ECU Health is the largest provider of healthcare
Okay.
in Eastern North Carolina. But Shirley, we're also the largest provider of behavioral health care in
awesome.
Eastern North Carolina.
That's good to know.
So very excited about sharing with you and your audience about a topic that's near and dear to me.
Okay.
Affects a lot of people, but
Yes.
sometimes we don't talk about it.
That is so true there. Well, Glenn, welcome to this Living Your Best Life segment, and I'm excited to have you here. Before we get into shedding some light on mental health, I'd like to get started with asking you a few questions. Mental health, what is mental health, and why is it important to maintain mental health, our mental health?
Sure. So mental health is health.
Yes, okay.
And that somewhat has common sense, and we would think of that
Okay.
when I say it, but we may not be thinking about it at other times, because a lot of folks think of health as their physical body,
Okay.
right? And as we know, our mind and body are clearly connected,
Yes.
and there's an overlap.
That is true.
So putting a focus not only just on our physical symptoms and conditions and well-being, but also on our mental well-being is
Right.
very, very important to keep both as in check as possible.
Okay.
Like physical health, mental health is on a continuum.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So it could be, some people may have high blood pressure, but it's not that high.
Okay.
And it can be controlled effectively without medication.
That is true.
Other people may have high blood pressure, and without medication, they would be at risk for some sort of cardiac event, right?
Okay,
Well, it's
right.
kind of the same with behavioral health.
I see.
So it is
Okay.
on a continuum. When I talk about mental health and behavioral health, that's our overall well-being,
Okay.
right? And then there's mental illness,
I see.
which is diagnosable conditions, just like heart disease is a diagnosable
Right.
condition,
Okay.
etc. Right? So mental health, again, just kind of our overall emotional, behavioral, cognitive well-being,
I
while
see.
mental illness is a diagnosable condition that impacts our thoughts, emotions, our behaviors, etc.
Oh,
So
okay.
just kind of compare and contrast between mental health
Right.
and mental illness.
I see. Okay.
Who has it? Well, we all have mental health.
Okay.
Some good, some bad, some kind of
Right.
in the middle.
Okay.
Some people end up with a mental illness.
I
So
see.
not everybody will have a mental illness in their lifetime.
Okay.
But there are a lot of folks that will. And then how to think of it. So, you know, mental health is kind of like physical fitness. How do we take care of our body? How do we take care of our mind? And it can change daily or every couple of weeks. And mental illness is kind of like a physical disease. Okay. So it's something that's in all likelihood not going away on its own.
Okay.
And without some sort of intervention is likely to get worse. Just like the person that was able to manage, you know, high blood pressure on a modified diet.
Okay.
But if they weren't able to do that, it could get worse.
Exactly. Right. That is so true. Okay. Now, I know since COVID, it seems like we've been hearing an awful lot about mental health. Is there any way, do we know about how many people struggle with mental illnesses?
Well, I think, you know, some of your viewers may be surprised that it's a little more prevalent than what we may think.
All right.
So we know that over time, over the last several years, that we can predict that 1 in 5 adult Americans will have a diagnosable mental illness this year.
All right.
So that's 20% of us.
Yes, pretty high.
And if we talk about young people and kids and teens, that is 1 in 6 chance.
Oh, okay.
So it is pretty common.
Yes, it sounds like.
We just don't talk about it
like
we do with other things. And then there's a segment of folks that have mental illnesses that have what's called a serious mental illness.
Okay.
And that impacts about 6% of the population, which is about 15 million people.
Ooh, okay.
So when we talk about, we're not talking about thousands or hundreds of thousands.
Right.
We're talking about millions and millions of Americans that have diagnosable mental illnesses.
Oh, awesome. I tell you, I didn't know the numbers were that high. Like someone for myself, just wanted to know, what are some of the signs and symptoms that we maybe can watch out for in a loved one or just someone in general that are struggling with mental illness?
And within ourselves too.
Yes,
so
yes.
We, you know, we get cues, right? Our body tells us, oh, that
back off.
Back off, right? You're a fitness instructor and you're an athlete and everything, so you know that, you know, that it needs to be somewhat of a balance.
I see, that's
correct. We may realize something ourselves. The thing about mental health, and for some people, even physical health, we may recognize something, but we're like, we don't want to tell anybody.
We don't want to deal with it, right.
So we don't want to deal with it. Or we're afraid that, okay, if I tell the doctor I'm feeling this way, he's going to say I need surgery or something like that, right? So, so we have a tendency to maybe avoid acknowledging it. So as loved ones, friends, family, neighbors, you know, whoever is, if you see somebody that there's a change in their emotions, you know, that's just not quite the same as what they used to be.
True.
Check in.
Check in a way.
In a authentic kind of way. So you know, we walk into a fast food restaurant and the person at the counter says, "Hi, how can I help you? How are you?" Most of us say, "Fine, how are you?"
True. Exactly.
Okay? I'm not talking about that type of check-in. Okay. I'm talking about really having it, a more intentional check-in. And the person, "No, I'm fine." And it's like, well, well, that's good, but it just seems like something's different or something. And when we're looking at, you know, mental health issues, because we all get a little down, right? We all get a little anxious at times, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's perfectly normal. That we're usually thinking of it for a diagnostic of that it's been over a period of time. And very simply, you know, at least 2 weeks. So I woke up this morning, for example, and I didn't feel like getting out of bed. I just kind of wanted to lay there, and it was a cloudy day or whatever. That doesn't mean that I'm depressed.
Exactly.
I'm driving here and getting to see you and your wonderful audience, and I may be a little nervous. Doesn't mean I have anxiety.
I see.
But if I can no longer work because I can't get out of bed because I'm just feeling so weighted down emotionally. Right. That could be an indication of a mental illness. It could also be an indication of a physical illness. Right? Because they do go hand in hand.
That's
right?
true. That is so
and
true.
So that again is why, Shirley, it's so important that we share not only our physical symptoms and whatnot with our healthcare providers, but also our mental or behavioral health ones as well.
Okay, all righty. Well, for someone who's not an expert like myself in mental health, I have taken some mental health first aid classes, but just for the viewers, how can we help a loved one who may be struggling perhaps with mental illness?
Sure. Well, the first thing is to not shy away from it, so to speak.
Okay.
So, asking the question, not giving advice or telling people what to do, or, oh, I think you need to try this medication or something, because that's not really left up to those of us that don't have the authority to prescribe medications, etc.
Okay.
But being genuine and authentic with the person and saying, what can I do to help? Is there anything I can do to help?
Okay.
Try to meet them at their level and where they're at. So it may be over a cup of coffee, or it may be on a walk or something like that. It should not be that kind of high buy, because you're sad. Well, I got to go now. Well, you want to make sure to check in with somebody that you have a little bit of time for that. And if somebody says, no, everything's fine, and guys and others will say that, right?
That's
I'm good, no problem, is continue to monitor.
Right.
If depending on what the relationship is, maybe mention, it seems like your husband is a little different than he used to be to the wife, right?
Okay.
And she goes, oh, I noticed that too. Or not, because usually, even though many people may suffer with a mental illness and other people not know about it, that's very, very true.
Yes.
Just in some cases, somebody's noticing something, right?
Something's different, right?
Something's different.
Yes.
And then if the person is open to it and agreeable to it, is say, you can check back in with me, or give them some options of if they want to, maybe call your doctor or something like that. Again, stay away from advice, but just in order to provide them know that they can talk to you.
Right, and that you recognize something different. Okay, very good. Now, we know, and I've heard you say that mental health is health. So how can we be proactive about our mental health?
Sure. So, in many of the same ways. First of all, talking about it.
Okay.
A show like this is a proactive approach.
Okay, very good.
Having education and knowledge. But again, that's the same thing about our physical health.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so usually, we hear from folks like yourself as physical fitness experts and physicians and other folks related to that is walking, exercising, getting fresh air, being in the sun, all those things that we think about helps our physical body.
That is true.
Helps our mental health body as well.
I agree.
Right? So,
I agree.
So in order to, because we're, again, mind and body is connected.
They're connected. That's true.
And so we do know that in some countries, some of those physical health type activities like walking and stuff, are actually prescribed by physicians and other healthcare providers as treatment.
Right, okay.
So that doesn't mean that everybody who has a mental illness would never need a medication or some sort of other medical intervention.
Okay, all right.
But again, it's on a continuum.
Right.
And so in some cases, if we can treat something without going more invasive or without medication, we were talking about the high blood pressure.
Right.
It would be a better way to lower blood pressure by changing lifestyle.
Yes, yes.
But in some cases, that
may not work.
May not work, or we would have difficulty changing lifestyle.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
And for somebody who's depressed, changing lifestyle could be harder for them.
That is true. That is so true. You're right. And that leads me to my next question for you. Why is it that we sometimes find it hard to even discuss mental health? Why is that hard for us to do sometimes?
Yeah, so going back to kind of the stigma that we mentioned, years ago, really we didn't talk much at all. It has improved, but there's still a big stigma.
Yeah.
But we all probably know somebody, if we're a little bit older, that we're in a family and nobody ever talked about Uncle Charlie or something like that. And that has not been helpful right?
Okay.
And so each May is honored to be, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, as I know you know.
Right. Okay.
And that started, what you may not know, back in 1949.
Oh.
So
Way back then. Huh?
way back then.
Okay.
And so mental health has not been widely talked about
I see.
for probably the history of this country.
Yes.
We have seen a little bit more since
Okay.
COVID,
Right.
because collectively we were all a little bit anxious and
Yeah.
depressed and isolated
That's
and everything,
true.
right? I mean, so we all experienced not necessarily mental illness, some people
Exactly.
did, but our
Some
mental
form.
health suffered a little bit,
It certainly
right?
did. That is
okay,
so true,
so
yes.
it may not have been diagnosable, it may not have really been depression, but it was a
did
change
suffer.
for the whole country, if not the whole world in many ways.
That is
So
true.
the good news of that is
Uh-huh.
that there has been more discussion about it,
Which is a
but-
good thing.
Which is a good thing.
Yes.
However, there's still a lot of people that feel that if they shared about their mental health issues, that somebody may look down on them or they wouldn't be taken seriously.
Okay.
And you know, mental health sometimes is considered a character flaw,
Okay.
a lack of will, some sort of shortcoming. And in the faith-based community, sometimes it's considered a sin.
That's true.
So
Okay.
if you're trying
Or
not to have
weakness.
shortcomings
Right.
or a weakness or something,
Right.
you're probably less likely to reach out to somebody.
I see.
And to, you know, mention this before, but a mental illness is a disease.
Yes. Yes.
So sometimes we don't want to let somebody know that, you know, we're having some chest pains, right?
Right.
So it's
okay.
not just mental health that we don't like to talk about. It can be other
Okay.
things. But those things, other physical stuff, it's just more, people appear to be more open about it.
Okay.
Years ago, cancer was a taboo topic.
no,
And so
exactly.
nobody talked about, you didn't use the C word,
That's
right?
true. That is so
and over
true.
the years, with a lot of advocacy and research, it's still a horrible disease.
Yes, and it's-
But it's not a stigmatized
As it used to
disease
be.
as it used to be,
Okay.
nor what like mental illness is today.
Oh, okay, very good. Now I heard you say, I know that May was considered Mental Health Month, but now we're saying June is Men's Health Awareness Month. So what is different, if anything, about men's mental health?
Yeah, good question.
Okay.
So lime green is the color for Mental Health Awareness Month.
Oh, okay.
And blue is the color for Men's Awareness Month.
Oh,
so I
awesome,
have
awesome.
lime and
The
blue in
combination,
honor of
okay.
those.
Okay.
And so, you know, Men's Health Awareness Month is in June, due in part to Father's Day being in June.
Okay.
And it's a time where, you know, we celebrate and
fathers and
acknowledge
men
and
and-
thank our fathers, father figures.
Right.
And
okay.
we've all had fathers,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Everybody has or have had a father.
Right.
And oftentimes men have either been taught or believe that opening up about their real feelings
Okay.
is not okay.
I see.
So,
okay.
you know, a lot of men do not want to talk about physical health issues
True.
either, right?
That
So
is
I don't
true.
want to like have anybody think I have a shortcoming or whatever the case may be. And that's not good, right?
Okay, exactly.
Real strength is being able to say, "Hey, I need help," or
That
"Hey,
is
I
so
have a
true.
problem."
That's-
But that's hard in our society.
It is,
you know, for
for
men
whatever
and sometimes
reason.
for women
Yeah.
and kids. I mean, not so with men, even though they often have the same kind of symptoms, just kind of across the board. What we do see sometimes with men is that they may engage in sort of like over accessible activities.
Okay.
Just like somebody who had worked 9 to 5, you know, and now is working 18 hours a day.
Oh, okay.
Somebody that is spending every moment watching sports or something like
see.
that.
Okay.
And none of those things are bad.
Right.
But if it's number one, a change,
Yes.
and number two, if you can't get your
Function.
life done,
Right.
so you know the person who's, you know, informally we say workaholic, right?
Okay,
So a
right.
workaholic, it's not actually an addiction, but workaholic could be covering up a mental
mental
health
health.
issue.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to go home. I'm
don't wanna
too
deal with
sad.
it.
I don't want to deal with it,
really.
etc.
Okay.
So that is a little bit different, and also for men, a lot of times it's risky behaviors.
I
So
see.
doing things that put them, and in many cases others, in an increase in substance use, including alcohol,
I see.
other chemicals and drugs. And some of those drugs, I mean, we think about, drugs on the street and drug dealers and everything.
Right.
And
So
that
much.
certainly does exist.
Yes.
But a lot of
Unfortunately.
times, drugs start off as being prescribed, or over drug use starts off as being prescribed by a physician, and in many cases, it can be related to pain.
Yes. So
And
true.
so what we've learned over the last couple decades,
I see.
that many of those medications that we use for pain, I'm not talking about over the counter,
Right. Okay.
it can be or are highly addictive.
Very, very true.
So you may start using some medication. I'm thinking about those in what's called the opioid family.
Yes.
With a good faith, the doctor's prescribed it to you, and then you start getting addicted,
Right.
and you call the doctor, and the doctor says, "Oh no, I was only giving you 10 days worth.
Okay.
Try some over-the-counter pain management
Right.
medication,
Okay.
acetaminophen, ibuprofen, etc."
Right.
But you're going, "Oh, I need more of this drug,"
Yes.
and then you end up looking for it in
Other places. Okay.
And unfortunately, you can find it in other places.
Most time you can.
And in
yes.
those other places, what we've seen over the last several years, and it's very, very frightening, is things not really being pure.
Oh,
So
okay.
in many street drugs today, you think you're taking one thing,
Right. Okay.
and you're taking something else, or you're taking the one thing that has had 5 things
Added
to it.
Okay.
And some of those things can be highly addictive, and in many cases, actually fatal.
Yes. Yes. I've
So,
heard that too.
somebody may not be trying to have an overdose or trying to kill themselves,
Right.
but it happens kind of accidentally,
Yes,
because they felt like they needed some relief from the the pain and the cravings and all those things
Okay.
that come with addiction behavior.
Okay, and that's very true, because I had a nephew, like I said, that was with the military, and he got injured while he was there, and was prescribed high controlled pain medication, and he did become addicted to it, and it was to the point where even the prescription amount was not enough, and it was just highly, like I said, addicting, the medication that he was on. But so I'm very aware that it can be addicting out there, and sometimes you don't know what you're getting if you go to the streets. So glad to know that we are making people aware of what needs to be done. Seek professional help if we need it. So right now we've talked about the definition of mental health, why we need to maintain our mental health, how we can be proactive. June being Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, rather. So tell me, what resources can we depend on, or that are available here in Eastern North Carolina for those struggling with mental health?
Sure. So, with a lot of, we've talked about in the healthcare industry, healthcare disparities and lack of access to care, and
Right.
Things about how do people take good care of themselves if it's not easy
Yes.
to go somewhere or get something, and that's all true.
Okay.
But I think most of us know about physical health resources,
Right.
just sort of by driving around, or in some cases advertisements on TV or other
Yes.
things, or our friends, neighbors, and loved ones will
Right.
say, "Oh, I have this too," right? So
Right,
it's not
okay.
stigmatized. So they're not, you may just find out about more resources.
Okay.
Well, even though behavioral health could have more resources, and we do need them,
Okay.
there are still a lot of resources available if somebody knows where to look.
Oh, okay.
And so at ECU Health, for the last 13 years, we've had a mental health expo each May.
Oh,
As you
okay.
mentioned, May being
Right.
designated as Mental Health Awareness Month. And this year, we had over 50 behavioral health agencies on hand
Okay.
from Eastern North Carolina
Oh, awesome. Okay.
to share with the participants. It was a community event about their services. And as you mentioned, I kind of have been doing this for a while, and there were services quite frankly, Shirley, I wasn't aware.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I like to think of myself kind of in the know about some of these things.
Okay.
So it's out there. It's just trying to figure out how to access it and what's available. So a couple of things people can do. Certainly, bring it up.
Right.
Ask. You may know a resource I don't know, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Certainly with our healthcare providers, physicians, nurse practitioners, whoever we see overall for our health, because they will have some resources, right?
Okay,
definitely. And if somebody's working, they have an employer. Many employers, especially larger ones, have something called an employee assistance program.
That is true.
That's typically a free service, and that's where somebody could go and talk to a therapist or get some counsel or maybe some direction. And then if somebody does have an employer, many employers offer health insurance.
Yes.
And that health insurance covers physical and mental health.
Oh, okay.
And in many cases, a lot of insurance companies have a special number or referral line or helpline for mental health issues. And certainly in North Carolina, those folks that have Medicaid.
Right. Okay.
And there's many different Medicaid organizations that provide Medicaid, but all of them have a special number for mental health as well as obviously for physical health.
Oh, okay.
So if you don't know, you could call your insurance or check with your employer about employee assistance programs. But if you don't know who to talk to, or you want to kind of, instead of saying it's me, just kind of being able to ask what resources are available.
I see. Okay.
We have a national helpline in the U.S.
Oh, okay.
It's 3 simple digits.
Okay.
And it's 988. And anyone can call 988 24 hours a day. Think of it as 911 for physical health.
Okay.
Crisis.
Exactly.
988 for mental health crisis.
All right, that's simple enough to
when
remember.
you call 911, you're going to talk to a dispatcher.
Okay.
Right? And in many cases, if not all cases, there's going to be, it could be law enforcement for health issues. It's going to be emergency management services, paramedics, EMS, EMTs, fire department folks or whatever.
Okay.
When you call 988, they're not dispatchers.
Oh, okay.
So they're behavioral health workers trained to talk to people about what's going on with them. But they have a lot of resources available at their fingertips.
Awesome.
And if it's determined that, okay, we really do need an ambulance, they can make that linkage to 911, right? But I think sometimes people are afraid of calling 911 for a mental health issue because they're going to have an ambulance show up on their doorstep. And that's not what 911 was actually designed for, right? So here, it's been operating for a couple of years as a national 3-digit number. There's you can text it as well. They have a chat feature. And all the calls for 2988 from North Carolina are answered in North Carolina, are answered in Pitt County.
Pitt County.
At an agency that specializes in crisis services, phone and technology crisis services.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so the benefit of that is when you call, you're talking to somebody that's in your state who has access to the most recent resource lists and files and everything. Because as I mentioned, you kind of have to know what the resources are. So these folks have access to that, and it's not just based on a national database. It's based on information and services right here in North Carolina and in their individual county. I mean, it's broken down to that level of detail. So we encourage folks to call 988, and it's not the person that may be thinking about having maybe at the crisis level or having questions themselves. That's fine, but it could be a loved one or friend or something saying, "Hey, I'm concerned about
such
my friend. What can I do?" And as you mentioned, what can we do to help people? Well, with more information, some of that, what we can do to help may be a little bit more directable.
Okay, very good. Sounds great. That's good to know. Good information. So thank you, Glenn, so much for that wealth of information that you shared with us. Did want to know, is it possible for someone to contact you for more information regarding mental health? Is the 988 number sufficient?
So sure. So at ECU Health, as I mentioned, we're a large provider of behavioral health services. Okay. So if somebody Googled or went to our website, which is ecuhealth.org,
okay. All right.
And in the search, you go in there and it lists behavioral health. It talks about, it has some educational information in there, as well as it talks about all the locations where we provide services, and there's some contact number information in there.
Awesome.
So that's certainly a resource locally, and most people are on the internet these days.
Yes,
right?
Yes, I should say so. Very good. Okay, then. Well, we're running out of time, so viewers, now you have it. Thank you, viewers, for watching GPAC TV 23 with your host, Lady G. That's me. Again, today's topic was designed with you in mind, and I pray that you are living your best life. And if you're not, ask yourself why. Thank you again for viewing.